Rock and roll Chicago, rock and roll Chicago, my hometown. Well, I was born in the city, gonna rock your city, Chicago.
Is Paul Martin and Ray the Roadie for the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast. So we're going kind of way back this week in our interview.
Yes, we are. We're back to the 60s and
the psychedelic era. Free sex, tie-dye, hippies.
colonial outfits.
Colonial outfits, exactly.
That's right. We're talking today with Ronnie Rice, who was lead singer, songwriter for the New Colony Six.
New Colony Six, and they're still around.
Yes, they are. Ronnie does a few shows with them, but some of the cornerstones of rock shows. But otherwise, you can see Ronnie performing on his own, playing acoustic guitar, just him and acoustic guitar, and in the audience. And he does a great job at it. We get the chance to see him back in August. And
that was a good show.
Yes, he is. He's got a great shtick he's got going there.
He sure does. Well, let's get this shtick on the road and hear what he has to say.
Okay, let's do it. This is Paul Martin
and Ray the Roadie
for the Rock and Roll Chicago podcast.
Joining us today in our studio, actually via phone line, is the man, the myth, the legend, Mr. Ronnie Rice.
Oh, listen to me. Listen to you. Just kidding. Too much ego on my side, I think. Anyway, how you guys doing?
We're doing great. How are you doing?
I'm fine as wine. Now that we're going to be talking,
yeah,
it's going to be more fun. So, what's going on, man?
Nothing. You're keeping pretty busy, I see.
Knock on wood, yeah. So far, so good. You know, I'm only 150 years old, so it's not bad.
That's good. You never know. You may hit 151 and things may slow down, right?
No, man, it's been pretty good. I mean, I can't complain. As long as people keep enjoying it, I'm making it more fun for myself that way. You know, actually the what do you call it? The audience, let's put it that way, is really everything. They're the whole ticket, really. I mean, they're the reason to get up there and rock and roll and have a good time with everybody. It's really a party, you know, and that's what it's meant to be. So I'm having a good time. Yeah, can't complain. No complaining.
We saw you out in Hillside, doing a show with Crying Shames.
Right on.
And you were knocking them dead as always.
Oh man, are you nice? Well, thank you so much. I mean, it means a lot to me to hear that, especially from guys as young as you. 'Cause you're only, what, 14 and 16?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, 14.
Yeah,
so
yeah. You know, they have all age groups. It's amazing. Thank you so much. No, I'm glad. Thanks for the reference. I appreciate that. That was nice.
Well, tell us first of all how you got started in the business. Let's go back in. You remember back that far, right?
Well, let me think. That was only a couple of weeks ago. So, no, I'm kidding. But actually, I actually knocked on a door one day of a guy named Dick Biondi, who was a pretty important guy, and as far as the record business, radio business, he was probably the main, probably one of the most celebrated guys at the time. 1961 is when I was 16 years old, and I knocked on his door, and he's the one who introduced me to the people that really brought me into the studio, and then I signed a recording contract, actually a local thing, and my first tune came out, was on the air at that time at 16, and it was pretty exciting. And when I went to Columbia College later on, which was about, I don't know, I was 19 years old or whatever, Columbia College here in Chicago, I met these guys called the New Colony Six. And at that time, they hadn't had a record out yet, or there wasn't anything, you know, we called them records, as you remember.
Sure, I remember records. Yes.
I remember
the vinyl things, you know. So anyway, so as it turns out, wound up, they actually introduced them to who became my manager, who was probably the biggest record promoter in the city of Chicago, a guy named Pete Wright. And he was an independent promoter. But anyway, since Dick Biondi introduced me to him, and so on and so forth. At that time, I introduced him to the Colony, and because of him, the New Colony had their first tune on the radio. I don't know if that was 1964, 65, but they had they got a hit record here in Chicago that became a number 2 song here called I Confess. And a year later, they wanted to replace their keyboard player, and they asked me if I would join. And I said, yeah. But I can't play keyboards. I'm so bad at it. But did it anyway, and that's the way it started with me. And I joined in '67, so can't complain. Things have been pretty good,
Well, now you've you had a couple of hits with them too.
Yeah. I was lucky enough. After I Confess, they had here in Chicago. We were the first out of the groups that did come out of here. You had the New Colony, then you had the Shadows of Night, Crying Shames, American Breed, Buckingham's, Ides of March. And there were other groups like the Flock, and there were other groups locally that had tunes on the air, but unfortunately they didn't get the opportunity that we did, and record-wise. So we got lucky, and 1960, I think it was 1967. I'm not sure, but I after having a couple local things, I wrote a tune called "Treat Her Groovy, Take Her to a Movie."
Right.
Tell her she's anyway. That didn't do very well. Did okay, numbers on WLS. We were lucky enough to get that kind of airplay, and WLS was 50,000 watt station, so they went all the way down south. And as it turns out. After Treat Her Groovy, myself and a guy I brought into the group later on. He wasn't in the group right away. He replaced a guy named Wally Kemp, who was our bass player, the original New Colony bass player. And his name was Les Como. This was the guy that I wrote I Will Always Think About You with.
Right.
And then we got real lucky with that one, and that was our first number 22 in both trades, Billboard and Cashbox, and that became number 1 here.
I will always think about you, even if I live without you. Please don't let that ever happen. I have too much love within me for you. Baby,
that was the start of something real nice, and as it kept going, about a year later, Things I Like to Say came out, and I was fortunate enough to, write that one too with Les, and sang it. So
you sang both of those. You sang both of those songs, correct?
Yeah, not at the same time though.
No, that'd be difficult. Yeah.
I will always think, baby, as you look at it, I will always do it together. It's very, very tough to do that. But so it afforded a nice, for a 22-year-old at the time, it afforded me quite a nice existence. It was very pleasant, very nice.
Baby, it's you I'm thinking of. In the morning when I wake up, in the evening, it's you that I dream of. Sometimes love hurts, and sometimes love's unkind, and sometimes you might feel good. But remember now, darling, if his words are real, this will never happen to you, baby. There's things I'd like to say. I was hoping that with all love we would get married someday.
Now, how long did you stay with New Colony 6?
I think I was with them until about 1974.
I see.
And then I went on my own. And, the Colony continued on, as they still do. They're still together. And as you know, I think you might be aware of it, we did a thing called Cornerstones of Rock, which was on PBS a couple of years ago. We recorded it along with all those other groups I'd mentioned. And because of Jim Pedrick from the Ides of March, who wrote, Wood Survivor. Anyhow, so Jimmy put that idea to here in Chicago, Channel 11, but PBS, they ran it in different parts of the country, but here in Chicago it did rather well, obviously, and as it turns out, we've been doing theaters like that, so that's the only time I hook up with the Colony, or at least a couple of the guys from the Colony, and that's how we're doing it, and that's the only time I do. Other than that, I've been on my own since 1977. Excuse me, and it's been myself and the guitar and the audience, and they're the singers. I'm just kind of the bring it on, trying to bring it to everybody. Hopefully they'll do it. So we do it together. It's like a party. I love it. I love the audience. Love it.
You're the vehicle that makes them work, right?
Well, yeah, that's the way to look at it. That's right. I just want them to have a great time. I mean, again, it's a mutual situation, Takes two to tango, baby. Takes two to tango. So if you have a crowd that's doing well, I mean, that obviously we're having a good time with, you can't, it's nothing better. And then, of course, you've also, everybody experiences times when it's not as great. You could be doing a private thing, or you could be doing something where it's not really working the way you want it to, because it just happens to be that way. So I call that combat pay. Because, it's like, oh my goodness gracious. But again, in a way, if you have a couple of jobs that aren't as hot as you would like them to be, or the audience isn't what you expected, it just makes it so much better for the ones that are great. And I'd say about 99% are really a lot of good time, Okay, I'll see you. Bye. So, what else is happening, baby?
Well,
Give me more.
You were with the New Colony Six then through their 4 albums, correct?
Oh, well, yeah, Revelation, I guess. Well, no, not the first one. The first one was with I Confess. I was on the second one.
Colonization.
I don't remember. What's that?
Colonization in '67.
I was definitely on that. Yeah, so the first tune I was on with the New Colony was a song called "I Love You So Much," and I sang background on that. And "Never Let Me," that was the part, and "Oohs and Ahs" and all that.
You still remember those parts, huh?
What's that?
You still remember those parts, huh?
Oh, yeah, man. I do. So, we all kind of collaborated on that to figure out what to do where, And, well, again, I kind of like that tune a lot. I mean, not kind of, but I do. I Love You So Much. I think it's a good up-tempo, kind of medium up-tempo thing. And that became a number 2 song here in Chicago. And it didn't do quite as well nationally. So, you just keep going. That's pretty much a deal. And again, here we are, knock on wood.
Do you do any of those hits when you play live?
Well, I do.
In your show now? That's what I mean.
What about it? Say it again.
In your show now.
Oh, yeah. In your show now. I never heard that song. But the truth is, yes, I do. It's really weird because I wrote a couple other things called "I Could Never Lie to You" and "Long Time to Be Alone," and "You're Gonna Be Mine," and I don't know what else. But the bottom line is I only do the ones that hopefully they can connect with, the ones that they may recall. And I think in most cases, you go places where things I like to say did very well for us, and so I do that, and I will always generally for sure. I used to do maybe, excuse me, I Confess, I Love You So Much. So it depends on what mood I'm in, because I never know exactly what I'm going to do at what point. I just go do it.
So what are some of your favorite songs from that era when you were with them?
You're talking about any? Well, let's see if I think back. I mean, I like the Blues Magoos. Remember those guys? Ding, 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 ding. I thought that was a cool tune. I thought Tobacco Road was a cool tune. I thought Buffalo Springfield was cool. I liked, Love the One You're With was another good one. I mean, there's a bunch of good stuff back then,
So these are
a couple of Blood, Sweat, and Tears tunes,
So what was your main influence?
Oh, gosh, for me, what are you kidding? I was, being 150 years old, I mean, I started young. We all started young. No, but seriously, I'm with the roots of rock and roll. So in other words, I was there when they invented it. And that was in the 50s. So you're talking about Little Richard and Chuck Berry, Elvis Presley.
Right.
Well, these were my influences. These are the people that I like boogie woogie feeling. I like shuffle kind of stuff. I like, it comes out in what you do. And so, Yeah, I'd say the stuff from the early to late, up until maybe I'll sprinkle in. Pretty much what I do is stuff I grew up with. So the people that, it's kind of ironic because the era where I was in my 20s when I was with the colony, at that time, all these groups like Moody Blues, we were doing Moody Blues stuff because you only got so many hits of your own. You only have, whatever you got to do. And again, I always believe in doing something that we all can identify with, the audience and us. And so in order to do, that, you want to do stuff like what at that time was current. I mean, we would do Beatles stuff and we would do, like I say, Moody Blues. We would do, a bunch of different things, Bee Gees. So what we would do, we even did Mountain,
Wow.
And then you remember Mountain?
Sure do.
Leslie West,
Yep.
Mississippi Queen.
Oh, yeah.
Now, I didn't do the lead on that, but Bill Herman was our drummer at the time, because Chick Chikowski was the original drummer of the group, and then when he left, we got a guy in named Bill Herman, who used to be with a group called The Exceptions. The Exceptions had Pizza Terra, and, they were a local band, but they were the best local band there ever was as far as doing things or cover tunes and so on until CTA organized
Right.
Pizza Terra, went with them and so on. But anyway, yeah, so there's a lot of good times to think back about, very cool.
Now, let me ask you, why the colonial outfits?
Well, Ray Graffia, it's a kind of interesting thing. New Colony being back then, and that's probably what sparked that in Ray's mind, because Ray and Pat McBride, the original Colony guys, that was their idea. And so they went from those outfits later on that we went, as you saw the Colonized album, if you saw the cover, you'd see the guys wearing stuff look like, uniforms, but they weren't anymore the Colony kind of thing. But that was just, it was his idea. I guess it was their idea to do that because of New Colony representing America back in that era.
Following the British invasion, of course.
Yeah, that was it, because that was the whole point of calling it New Colony 6, was they were representing America, so New Colony being that. And you're right, that's exactly what the reason was. But when they went to, the story goes that when they went to California, this is before they were noticed at all, before they even had a tune out. That while I was out there, they met the Paul Revere and Raiders, and they had the same idea.
Right.
As far as wearing clothes, wore the same kind of thing, same kind of idea,
Do they still do that with the shows nowadays?
The Raiders do, yeah.
Yeah, I know the Raiders do.
Yeah, the Colony. Well, when the Colony plays, I guess they're individually dressed at this point. Ray Graffia, the founder of the band, well, he actually still does fit into whatever. And then I guess there are times when they do dress that way, and there are times they don't. They're like he may wear. Back then, Nehru jackets were big, so Ray could still fit into his. Good luck to me. But,
I know that. That feeling.
Oh, it's a wonderful thing. Food is actually my drug of choice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, yeah.
But of course, it's all still hanging in your closet. Just one day, you're going to be able to put it on.
Oh, yeah. Probably when I drop dead so I can thin down a little bit. You know what I mean? Then they could go put that on me. I'll tell you. So, yeah.
So
I don't know.
Tell me about Ronnie Rice and the Gents and Ronnie Rice and the Silvertones. Now that's going back to pre New Colony.
Yeah,
days.
that's pre-Colony. Sure, that was again when I was with that gentleman who, like I told you, that record promoter.
Oh, okay.
And it was like I say, I was 16 years old when those came out. They didn't do anything, but they did come out, and that got you a little bit of obviously exposure. But I wasn't really playing a lot of jobs at that time, even with those guys we're talking about. Did a couple of record hops, as you call it back then. I did one with Gene Chandler, the Duke of Earl, and I did, pretty much. I couldn't even think of anybody else that I did something with back in the day. But I remember doing it with him, over at an armory in Gary, Indiana. But and I would lip sync like an old Frankie Lyman tune called "Why Do Fools Fall in Love." Oh, not "Why Do Fools Fall in Love." Come on, baby, let's go downtown. That was it. And I love you, baby. "Want You to Be My Girl" was the name of the tune. "Want You to Be My Girl," and again, it sounded more like a surfer kind of thing. But anyway, that was, that's pretty much the beginning of the recording thing for me. It's pretty exciting for a young person to have that happen. Very much so.
Of course.
Yeah.
Now tell me what. Well, yeah. I mean, you talked about Dick Biondi, but tell me what WLS actually meant to like the Cornerstones of Rock, the Ides of March, and the Crying Shames, and American Breed, and all those bands.
Yeah. Well,
what WLS actually meant to them.
Oh, it meant everything. I mean, WLS would break the tunes, and then all of a sudden, bingo bango. So some of the guys, for instance, it's interesting because, again, since we were the first to get lucky nationally, after us, I think came to Shadows at Night. So, WLS had a lot to do with it because this being a 50,000-watt station, other people, other radio stations would hear these tunes as well, and it would give the promoters, the record promoters, a chance. They could always identify with that and say, "Oh yeah, it's really big here." If it is, if it was a legit hit, is usually not you calling up 4,000 times requesting your own tunes, or having your friends call you. A legit hit would be something that actually did sell a lot of tunes. But WLS, it meant a lot to everybody. It meant a lot to all the guys you're talking about. They're the ones that broke they're the ones that started all of those guys going. So everybody's real dedicated or appreciative of that station. I mean, it was fantastic. And then, these were the days when the DJs were celebrities. And so it was pretty cool. I mean, everybody's really, these are great memories to have for us. And when they play us stuff as oldies, as they still do, on the 60 channel and so on and so forth. So we're lucky with that too. I wish that the Crying Shames, I've said this before, I wish that they would have gotten the opportunity from Columbia Records, because they were on a major label. And it was really kind of unfair that after having a number one tune here called "Could Be We're in Love," which was number one for a lot of weeks. And after that being said, it was just not fair to them, because I don't think Columbia did the promotion they should have done. It would have been, it would have been top 5 in the United States if that were the case. So again, even if you're on a major label, you could get lost on a major label too.
Sure.
Because they may have other things going at the time, which are, giving more interest, obviously more attention to.
They were more of a regional
hit.
Yeah. Right.
Well, that happens again. Like I say, that was why we got lucky, because we got lucky, and then again we could have got luckier. And the part that could have been luckier would have been that if we were on Mercury Records, and at that time, if it weren't for Pete and Howard, again, well, I don't know, you're not aware of this, I don't think, but I will always think about you. Mercury Records thought it was a stiff. They didn't think it was a hit tune.
Really?
They thought Treater Groovy was the hit, and I will always think about you was a stiff. Well, Pete and Howard Bennett was the other guy with Pete. They were both partners in crime over there. So as it turns out, Pete was the one who got it started nationally. He's the one who really got it started, like in Louisville. When it was number one here, about a week later, it became like top 5 in Louisville. And all of a sudden, bingo bango, now Mercury did the distribution and the promotion around the country. And like I said, it became number 22 in both charts and national things. And then all of a sudden, Things I Like to Say came out. And that became top 5 in every major market. LA, New York, Milwaukee, whatever, Chicago. So we were top 5 in every, which means you're top 5. You should show us top 5 in the in Billboard Cashbox. But unfortunately, because of distribution, by the time it became number 2 here, it was just starting elsewhere. You see what I'm saying?
Yes.
So by the time I was coming down here, so the average, it averaged out like number 13 in Cashbox and number 16 in Billboard, whereas it really, they're still playing in L.A. I'm talking about.
Right.
If you're top 10 in every major market, top 5, then it should show it that way. But because of the time they started promoting here and there in different places, it didn't get the saturation that it probably should have had.
Right.
But I'm not complaining.
No.
Well, I am, but I'm really not.
Yeah.
Hey, we lucked out. It still did a good thing for us.
So tell us about your current show, what you do now. I know you said it's just you and a guitar and the audience.
The audience.
Right.
And it's really up to it's like a mutual sing-along. You guys remember this, remember that kind of thing, because, the whole thing just was an idea that when I first started, doing the solo thing, and Let Us Entertain You was corporation, which is Rich Bauman's thing, which is a thing like has all these restaurants. And a place called Lawrence of Oregano was on Diversity Avenue in Chicago. And at the time, I actually applied for a position because I was done with the colony. I didn't do that anymore. And I told Rich Bauman, who happened to be the owner of Let Us Entertain, he was the main dude. And he said, boy, you think we could do that here by getting people singing and stuff like that? Cause he knew he knew my background. So I helped pick people because it was that kind of a place, a restaurant where if you're waiting in a waiting area, you would have people entertaining you and the waiters and waitresses. So that's where I started doing it in 1977. And then from that, it went from one place to another place. And now, I do an hour and 20-minute program and, basically have a party. I always felt it like a party because it's pretty much the way it is, Started in my basement that way. Hey, you have 1 or 2 people. Hey, how you doing? You want to do this one? Let's jam, that kind of thing. So it's really kind of a spontaneous thing in a way.
And you do a lot of that old stuff from the Elvis and the Little Richard.
I don't do a lot of Elvis, but I do some Elvis for sure. Chuck Berry, Elvis, a song by Little Richard. Or you'll do Beach Boys. I do pretty much what, like I say, it could be a Buddy Holly thing. I don't know what's going to come to my mind at the moment. I kind of I know how I'm going to start. I want to start with I want to start and kick some butt, and then wherever it goes to, it'll be interesting. I never know. I don't know exactly.
Are most of your shows local, or are you traveling around the country?
No, I hate traveling. I can't stand it.
Okay.
I don't like traveling, mainly because it messes up my ears. If I have to fly, I have the station 2 problem. So, you're flying and you got to hold your nose and blow to try to open them up, and then half your brains fly out. It's kind of, that explains a lot, I'm sure.
Yeah, that's a good picture there.
You like that? That's a good one.
Very good.
It's the theater of the mind, right?
Yes.
I tell you, man. Yeah, you're right. It makes things a little simpler. But, yeah, so traveling for me, it was more fun when you're young. I did a lot of it. By the way, I did do a lot of corporate stuff a number of years ago and doing what I do now. And I've been doing that for years. So I still do that here and there, but it's different than it was. Things are different. The guys that are really making a lot of noise right now are the tribute bands.
Oh, yeah.
And, these guys, it's surprising how things have gone. So when you see, that the turnout that people are doing not necessarily stadiums, but 4,000 seat places, maybe more, that are tribute groups. But in actuality, there's some of these groups are obviously who are still have the name of the band. They're like, can I tell you one quick thing real fast?
Sure.
Kind of late for that, ain't it? No, but anyway, here's the deal. I went to go see Paul McCartney one time, and he wasn't with Wings. It was just Paul McCartney, and this was a few years ago. And Dick Biondi was still on the air at the time, and he said, Ron, call in and let us know how the Paul McCartney show was.
Okay.
So I called after the program. I was driving home with a bunch of people and whatever, and then I called into WLS, and Biondi said, we got so-and-so on the phone. He said, hey, Ronnie, so what do you think of the Paul McCartney show? I said, it's the best Beatle tribute band I've ever seen in my life.
Yeah. Yeah.
It really was. And, you hear all, I mean, there's so many now. It's incredible how many careers some of these groups have started without realizing it. Even REO Speedwagon got a tribute band somewhere.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Isn't that amazing?
So in your solo career, are you an original member?
Yeah, I am. Yes, I am. I wanted to be Don Ho, but I got the T-shirt. I got the shirt. So no, but actually,
tell me about the Rockin' Rabbi. What's that all about?
How do you know about that?
I
came out to one of the programs.
Yeah.
Well, I'll tell you what. One day I was on a radio. I was doing an interview, and since I'm a Landsman, which is a Jewish person, I was born in Israel, by the way. I wasn't born here.
Okay.
I was like, I remember Gene Simmons, the same thing, and he was born there as well. But anywho, the bottom line is we weren't very religious. I shouldn't say that because I got a gig tomorrow at a synagogue, by the way, which is hard to believe it's in Skokie, isn't it? But anyway, so
imagine that.
Yeah, dig it. I've been there before. Temple Ezra Habanim, and so I've been there before. But the thing is the what's the question?
The Rockin' Rabbi.
Oh yeah, that's it. So one day I'm doing a thing, I think, on the air with Steve and Johnny of WGN Radio, and I was doing a thing with them, and I happened to go into this Jimmy Reed tune. You got me running, you got me hiding.
Right.
You got me run, hide, run anywhere you want. I go, you got me running, you got me hiding. I started doing one of these things. I saw Jackie Mason doing Jimmy Reed. And Steve King was actually laughing so hard he was he was laughing. So that was pretty much it. And then, but if I do it, it usually doesn't, I don't know how to set it up well enough for the people to even pay attention. It's like, you got me, and then you got some people go like, yeah, well, that's interesting. And they don't care. I did in Highland Park one day, I did outside. Steve was with me and he's playing guitar. He goes, come on, you got me and do the Rockin' Rabbi thing. And I was there going, you got me, you got me, you got me looking. And the audience didn't pick up on it anyway. So they didn't care. So it didn't matter. So I haven't really continued on with it,
Right.
But it's kind of a thing, man. Kind of a thing.
So let me ask you one other quick question. Going back to the, I noticed that the New Colony 6 anyway, was inducted into the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Oh, yeah. It's an interesting thing. I just happened to see that on the web that the Buckinghams were off.
Right. And I wondered,
in this.
and I wondered why the Iowa Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
Yeah, where was it? Wacky Iowa? What did you say?
Why Iowa? Why Iowa?
I have no idea. I have no idea. That happened one day, and that was it. I guess they decided to indoctrinate. What's the word? Is that it? Yeah. Anyway. The Colony, from what I understand, they went up there. I didn't go.
Okay.
I didn't want to go there. I don't want to travel. So, so as it turns out, they did. I was kind of surprised to see the Bucks doing a thing with them, an interview on the iPad that I have. But that was kind of a surprise. So I don't know, but they did, and I don't know if we were the first ones over there or not, but.
Well,
or the Colony.
The reason I bring that up is because right now we're talking to you from the Illinois Rock and Roll Museum.
Is that where we're at right now?
Yeah,
is that where you're at?
That's where we're at, Route 66 in beautiful downtown Joliet. And they've been kind enough to set up a little studio for us here.
Oh, that was nice. Well, that's real nice.
And they've also got a Road to Rock, what they call the Road to Rock radio, internet radio show.
That's neat. Yeah,
and our podcasts are broadcast every Monday night from at 6:00.
That's fun. Okay, that's pretty cool.
And
I know we were down there to try to raise a few bucks that time, and whatever. It's a good project. I hope it. I hope when it's concluded, when it's finished, I'm looking forward to seeing it. They're at least hope it gets finished. I don't know when it's going to be finished, but
well, they're hoping sometime next year that it should be completed.
At least the first floor.
Yes.
Yeah, Ron. What's Ron's last name again?
Ron Romero.
Yeah, he's the boy. Yeah, Ron Romero. Yeah, he's good dude, man.
Yes.
Say hi for me. And that's about it, boys. I don't know what else to tell you.
All right. How do we get a hold of you? How do people find out where you're playing and where they come see you?
Look up on the internet. They could just look up the internet. RonnieRice.com.
Okay.
And then if they want to find out what shows are open to the public, they could just look under shows.
So you said you had a show come up tomorrow. You got anything else scheduled for the rest of the year? Or?
Well, we got another Cornerstone program coming up, and that's November, at the end of November. It's all listed down there.
Okay.
And then after that, I got a private thing, and then I got Del Webb we're doing again. It's the right era,
Right.
Got the Del Webb folks up there, young retirees, great crowd. Done it before, love it. It's a lot of fun.
Excellent.
So that's the story, Morning Glory, but thanks for interviewing, and I appreciate it.
Well,
thanks for joining us.
Thank you very much.
My pleasure, man, and thanks again. I'm going to go hit the washer now. It's been a pleasure.
All right. Thanks, Ronnie.
Thanks, Ronnie.
All right, guys. Take care, man. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
That was Ronnie Rice, the great Ronnie Rice, formerly with the New Colony Six, and now on his own doing his own thing.
There are so many boys in the world who really need a girl. So treat her through that.
So that was Ronnie Rice, and Ronnie's got some great stories from back in the day.
And I love this tri-corner hat he gave me. Don't I look cool?
Yeah.
I think this thing is so cool.
Oh, yeah, you're looking good.
I'm colonized, man. I'm colonized. That's not Colin. That's not colonized. That's my doctor that takes care of that, so.
Yes. But Ronnie's a great performer, and he does a great job playing and keeping busy.
Yes, he does. He's always in great spirits, funny guy. It was an honor and privilege to talk to him.
Yes, it was.
So make sure you guys are following us on Facebook, checking us out on iTunes and everywhere you get your podcasts. Subscribe, let your friends know, share. Drop us a line. If there's somebody you want us to interview, maybe we'll do that for you.
Thank you for listening.
Thanks for listening. See you soon.
Bye-bye.